Good evening. This is Gloria Taylor Brown, the Gathering of Priestesses, coming to you from Oceanside, California. And with me this evening is my co-host, Miss Catherine Ravenwood. I have dragooned her into visiting with me, and we're going to be on the show together. And our guest for this evening is our delightful, our delirious, our wonderful Miss Nicki Scully.
Mostly delirious.
Nicki I met Nicki back in 1985, which is before some of you were born. And she's been my primary teacher ever since. I have been to her house many times. I went to her wedding. I've been to Egypt with her 12 times. After all these years, I still love her. And anyway, she's got 2 new books coming out and a new class coming out. We're going to talk about that this evening, and we're going to talk about anything else that comes up. We are not going to ask our standard question because, quite frankly, Nicki has been on here, and if you want to know how Nicki became a priestess, there are 2 different YouTube videos which tell you that, and I suggest you go back and listen to them. They're very good. You know, one of the things is we have all of our shows are on YouTube. This is actually, although I say number 65, this is actually show number 69, so that's appropriate. And we are we're moving on towards getting a fairly good following. We've had over 12,000 views. We have almost 800 people that are now members of a Gathering of Priestesses on Facebook. And I want to welcome all of you that are here with us this evening and maybe listening to us in the future. And now I'd like to introduce you to our guest, Miss Nicki Scully. And Nicki, how are you doing today, sweetheart?
I'm doing really well. Gloria and Catherine, Raven.
You've known me a long time. You've known me by many names. Many names.
And by any one of them, I love you.
I love you too, darling.
So you have a new book that's coming out with Miss Normandy Ellis, who we had on last week, and we discussed the ascension, the Phoenix Ascension. And I noticed she just had a new blog post on that. So if any of you are interested, it's on her blog. It's also going to be in the new book. But tell us a little bit about your take on the new book. And the new title is The Union of Thoth and Isis.
Right.
Wrong? Yeah.
The Union of Isis and Thoth.
Okay.
Magic and initiatory practices of ancient Egypt. And we have known that we had a book to write together for probably about 17 years. And when it finally came time, and it's like, okay, now it's time. What are we going to write it on? We'd already co-led 17 mystery schools and 6 trips to Egypt. And we just didn't even know where to begin to think about something we could concentrate into a book. And so we asked for guidance and realized that probably one of the most important teachings in the entire mystery school was the building of the Adytum, the inner heart temple, which is, of course, related to the building and consecration of Thoth's moon temple, which is on this land. I think, were you at the original consecration?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of magic associated with it. And it's been flowing that way ever since. But that initial awakening of the mystery school and the consecration of this land as a temple, we realized had been going on for a decade before we even started the mystery school, with various ceremonies arriving at auspicious moments to prepare the land for what would ultimately be a consecration guided by the goddess Sekhmet, who is one of Thoth's partner goddesses, and who is the keeper of the records, the guardian of the libraries. You'll often see images of her sitting behind Thoth with her hands like this over his back, as though she were giving him alchemical healing or Reiki. And theirs is an amazing partnership based in language, mathematics, and the science of magic. Because for us, magic is that which we can't understand or explain. But for the ancient Egyptians, it was science. It was just the way the world worked. It's all based in natural law. So we do the best that we can in explaining it and how it works. And then we provide journeys and initiations and experiences so that each person who reads the book will be directly guided through the process of consecrating their inner heart temple, which is the Adytum within. And if they wanted to apply those principles to consecrate land, upon which, in our case, it's an etheric temple, is consecrated, you will have the formula. Although there's certain aspects of it that depend on high magic, magic that we cannot contrive, that it either happens or it doesn't.
Mm.
And when it does, it's pretty remarkable and astonishing. And so we tell those stories because it was
Magic happens. Why do you think sometimes the magic happens and sometimes it doesn't? Why does high magic not always happen?
Well, I don't know that it doesn't. I mean, what I mean to say is the kind of magic that I'm talking about can't be contrived. You can't, for example, and this is kind of hard to talk about because it started with a vision quest in which in which I had been instructed, we had been instructed to lay stones out in a particular place on the land. We didn't really know what we were doing or what we were preparing for, and to do ceremony in the hours between the full moon and the summer solstice of 1997. And when we set up our ceremony and did our ritual and asked to be shown whatever we needed to be shown, the next thing I knew, I was actually giving birth to the guardians of the temple. That was like having a physical birth, with the breaking of the water, with the crowning of the heads, and the goddesses that were born were full-fledged adult goddesses that were born from my yoni into the stones that we had laid. And then we were later told to bury the stones. And these statues, one of Hathor and one of Sekhmet, are constantly shifting back and forth from one to the other. So if one is Hathor, the other is Sekhmet, and they just keep going like this because they are two sides of the same coin. And they are the guardians of the Holy of Holies, which is invisible. And we don't, unless we have instructions, we don't even put any attention there, let alone let anybody know where it is. Unless you're part of the mysteries, then it becomes obvious. But it's interesting because a couple of months before this happened, I was in Egypt and there was somebody there that did angel readings. And I thought I was just being polite because angels really weren't my thing. But she wanted to give me an angel reading. So I said, sure, I'd love one. And what she told me in this reading is that every time that I did priestessing work, every time I did a class or did an initiation in Egypt, a wall went up or a pillar or a little chapel or some aspect of an etheric moon temple that was being created as I worked, even though I couldn't see it. And so when this happened, suddenly I realized that it was real and this was the moon temple, and that now it had, all these things had been done, and it was now time to consecrate it and name it and give it intention and follow the instructions of Sekhmet, so that the class that was going to be our second, the first class was done in California, and it was like a commitment ceremony. And the second class was the consecration of the temple. And those statues had to be set in place before we could make the magic that we could do to consecrate the pillars that made the walkway through the temple to the Holy of Holies. And so when I say it's not that it doesn't happen, when it happens, and you know it's happening, but you know that you could not, you were co-creating with spirit. There's no way I could have asked for and gotten that to happen. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And you explained that beautifully. Thank you.
I think it also is a matter of not necessarily controlling it. In other words, we are not doing it. We are not the ones who are
in charge
and making the magic happen. The magic happens through us, as opposed to the magic happening because of us.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that there is a certain class of magic where people believe that they are making the magic happen, that it is them.
Red flags going off everywhere.
Yeah. And generally, I believe that is so ego driven that it eventually will fall of its own weight. But sometimes it is what people expect whenever they get involved with people who are involved with, shall we say, magic or shamanism or alchemy, they expect that they're going to come to a teacher who knows everything. I remember there's a gentleman I know who goes to a particular guru, and he claims she knows everything. And I'm going, okay, probably not my kind of guru. And
if you know who to ask, you probably do.
yeah, so yeah, but at the same time,
how you ask and the humility that you bring to it. But you have to own a certain amount of I don't know whether power is the right word, but at least accessibility in order to co-create magic and be available. Like every time we sit down and say, okay, we're going to do a mystery school, we're agreeing to participate in magic. We hope it's going to be the highest magic possible, but they won't even tell us what we're going to do until just before it's time, because they don't want us messing with it.
yes, I've experienced that a number of times with you, where we have found out the day before what we were doing.
And then it's like, how are we going to do that?
And
And we don't know until it happens.
right. So I'm just noticing we've got about 21 people who are here right now, including, and I want to welcome Patricia and Debbie and Maria and Felicia and Anne and a number of others who are here. And I would like to request that if you have a question, if you will put it in as a question, this methodology allows you to put it in as a question, then it will pop up that you've got a question, and I'll make sure I see it. And then I don't have to spend so much time flipping back and forth, and I spend less time doing technology and more time doing magic, which sometimes are identical, but not always.
I love to hear your questions.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, I was thinking about well, going back to 1987, whenever it was the harmonic convergence and the Chernobyl event, which was the first birthing.
86.
86, okay. Whatever. Hey, it's a long time ago.
Yeah, I think. Anyway, it was back then, yes.
Way back then. And there was the first birthing, and then they had you had mentioned that you had a later birthing, which was the birthing of the two goddesses. And in a way, I think that first birthing may have been the beginning of the temple.
Well, maybe it was certainly an injection or an expression of the movement of power that was part of what Chernobyl was about. I'm not comfortable to tell that story.
That's okay.
But it is written in Planetary Healing, and to give it appropriate respect and sacredness, I would not feel comfortable to try and tell that here. But you can certainly get my book, co-authored with my husband Mark Hallert, Planetary Healing, Spirit Medicine for Global Transformation. And that, the first chapter is called It Started with a Disaster, because it did. It's the whole teaching road for me in terms of my own teachings began with that that birthing that happened in the sweat lodge. while simultaneous to Chernobyl blowing.
Yeah. So wasn't planning on you going over it again, but I did think that I was thinking at it and I was just looking at it. And I was thinking that, you know, in a way, it's like the seed for the temple was laid at that time. And it was from that seed that outgrew everything else outgrew out from that.
I think that's true. So then you would have to say that it started with, now it's Rosh Hashanah. We're right in that window of Rosh Hashanah right now. And that started with Yom Kippur, the September before Chernobyl blew was when I did the vision quest to consecrate the sweat lodge on the land. And that's when it began. That's when the conception was, although I had no idea.
Right. Yeah. It was interesting because at that time also, I remember we did one session there where, and this was long before all those houses were built up there on the hill.
Right.
And we were out walking in the woods in the middle of the night. But that I remember the dragon and the dragons coming in and reformatting us. And it was like from that point forward, there was no going back. It was up until then, it was like, up until then, you've been playing. After this, you're no longer playing. Or at least that seemed like that to me. And so in a way, it's been almost 30 years now that you have been doing this work. And as you mentioned, you've done, what is it now? 4 books, 5 books?
7.
7 books. All right. Do you include?
The Sekhmet book will be the 8th.
Okay. And in a way, they just build one upon the other. And so, I recommend to people who want to study that they do start with power animal meditations and alchemical healing, because those two are the primers. Those are the basic work that we are talking about here. Mm-hmm. And that from
power animal meditations is more of the researching of who is available and what their gifts are. Mm-hmm. But the alchemical healing is the tome that lays out the principles of alchemy as it relates to alchemical healing. And I remember very consciously at the time choosing to name it Alchemical Healing because I never, I wanted it to be successful, but I didn't feel that it was appropriate to be mainstream. And I kind of still feel that way because there's no filters. It pretty much lays out the process of creation and manifestation with, all focused towards healing. That's the only filter that keeps it from being misused, is that nobody is going to pick up a book called Alchemical Healing if they're not serious about healing.
That's true. That's true. I've had many people ask me, well, you're into alchemical healing. Does that mean you're a chemist?
If they can even pronounce it. It's amazing how few people even know how to pronounce alchemical.
Oh, tell me about it. I named my company Alchemy Arts, and I have spent most of my life since then spelling
it. Spelling it.
Yes, it's like, how many ways can you mispronounce that simple word? And then I moved to Albatross Way, which nobody can spell either, because apparently they don't teach the Ancient Mariner in school anymore. So, Nicki, to go away from the discussion of alchemical healing for just a minute, because there's a couple of questions here, and it's the same question we always get, which is, given the volatility of the region, how safe is it to travel in Egypt?
Oh my God, I don't know. How safe is it to drive on I-10 in Phoenix?
Not very.
How it's safer than that. It's a lot safer than that. It's, you know, the way we do it, it's pretty darn safe because we keep to ourselves. We do everything private and at different times of days than other tours do things. We're, you know, we're pretty careful and we're watching and we're seeing. I mean, obviously they're pretty scared and have the security on high alert because they made this horrendous mistake in the last day of, you know, but that was way out in the Western desert and we're certainly not going there. So no place that we are going has shown any signs of real danger. Any, you know, unless the State Department suddenly pulls the plug and takes the embassy and shuts it down, we're going to Egypt.
So let's just, I want this one once for all. If we tell you you can't go to Egypt, you can't go to Egypt. Until then, we're going to make it safe enough for you to go to Egypt.
Yeah, but I can't speak for the way other tour companies do things.
I mean, for your tour company and the way it's done with you.
And, you know, that said, I mean, people are crazy all over.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
I mean, there's less tourists been killed than school children in the last, I don't know how many years. I mean,
I'd like to move back to more metaphysical and less mundane. Felicia says that she's been having birthing experiences as part of Mother Earth and the relationship to sacred geometry. I've been an initiator and transformationist for over 20 years. Now the message to awaken sacred witnessing for newborns has been received from Earth's living library. Have you experienced this information as the evolution of our integral humanity emerging?
How I've experienced it is more like a speeding up of evolution, mutation. When I had cancer in 1992, it was pretty much mutate or die. And I observed the mutation. I also observed all of the things that I had to do. I didn't cut any corners on my healing just because I'd have these powerful magical experiences that said I was healed. Did not mean I didn't have to finish the entire process. But with regard to these birthings, and I think that we are learning that we don't just pass on new DNA through having babies in the conventional way, but that there are a number of ways we can change and mutate our DNA, and our involvement in birthing through relationships with the gods is a level of Tantra that some of us are just learning about it. If you know more about it, and I'd love to hear it. Because although I can't name the exact number of births that I've been engaged in, one of the most interesting ones involved, I always do twins, but in Peru, I did 2 sets of twins one night. And that almost took me out, actually. It was very cold, and we were very outside. And it was really quite amazing. Plus, Charla had to loan me a hip because I wasn't wide enough.
Well, it's always good to have a friend's hip to be able to borrow. So you have a new book, which is not the Union of Isis and Thoth, but it will be coming out next year. But you have a class that will be coming out in October?
Starting October 1st, I'm going to do Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, 6 classes. And what it is, it's called Sekhmet, in the belly of the goddess. And it's about transformation at the deepest levels of our being, so that like we can, in our preparation for the transformation has to do with finding all of the characteristics and qualities that are no longer serving us. And that includes our fears, our anger, our rage, our self-saboteurs, and whatever obstacles there are in our ability to become fully realized in this lifetime. And creating an offering to Sekhmet. And as she digests that offering, we witness the process of transformation at such a visceral level that we can't go back. It's like you were saying, there was a certain point in the teachings, and then suddenly everything shifted and there was no way back.
Mm-hmm.
And this book is meant to be that kind of an experience.
Well, I know that when we did the class in 97,
Mm-hmm.
getting old.
97 is when it first came in.
Yeah.
In Switzerland, it came in, actually.
Whenever we did up in Port Townsend.
Yeah, I came home and immediately tried it out here.
Right. That was one of the most powerful classes I'd ever been in. It was like 3 or 4 levels up from anything that we had done before. And the people that were there, the experience they had, from my view of it, was much more dramatic, intensive, confrontive even. Raven, you were there. So.
I was there.
Yes, you were. That's where I met you, wasn't it?
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And yeah, it was an intense class.
And that was at the beginning of it. That was just a shell of what it has grown into.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it has so deepened and expanded. You said Debbie's on the phone. Debbie's been helping me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have our gifts, and mine's a catalyst. I'm not a seer. I'm not a visionary. Mark is the visionary of the family. But the two of you, and Indigo and Debbie and Mark have been some of the main seers that have helped to instruct me or draw the maps from which these books happen. Like Raven, you were with me the day that I had been keynoting at Women of Wisdom conference, and I was doing a class on Sekhmet, and there was like I was doing a class on alchemical healing.
Right.
And there was about 65 or 70 women in it. And the night before, Mark had the vision, and we knew, and it was right. The ink hadn't even dried yet on the Alchemical Healing book when it became apparent that I had to write planetary healing. Mm-hmm. And so that communal cauldron, that moving from one-on-one healing to situational healing or planetary healing or exponential use of group energies in healing, that all came out of that day at Women of Wisdom. And if you hadn't been sitting next to me, I don't know that it could have come.
Well, you know, that's one of the things I think you were talking about the high magic is I didn't know that was going to happen. You didn't know that would happen. And yet we were there, and together we formed that channel, kind of like kind of like one of those, I'm seeing it like those Navajo wedding jugs where you've got a jug on each side that holds.
Right. Well, we allowed it to happen.
Yeah. And I didn't know that was going to happen. And you turned around and said, what, you know, and that's one of the things that I really think is really amazing about you, Nicki, is how you just go for it. You don't know what's going to happen. You're up in front of 65 people. You don't have an agenda, and you just open yourself up. And that is pretty damned amazing. And that is because you have this relationship with the guides, with Thoth and with others, and you trust, and you have intention, and you have great, impeccable intention. And so it happens. And whoever's there with you kind of gets to go along for the ride.
Well, that was quite a ride.
It was quite a ride.
And the cool thing that came out of it, it was so remarkable that 2 weeks later, Alexa McDonald had written a song for it, mm-hmm. which became a CD that is now attached to the book. If you buy the book, you get this fabulous journey CD called Making Spirit Medicine, or The Nectar of Love. And 2 weeks later, we're in Palm Springs doing it for 450 people.
At the Prophets Conference.
Mm-hmm. At the Prophets Conference. Yep. Oh my God.
Up on stage going, okay, it's rock and roll.
We got them to allow us to configure the room like a circle.
Which was not easy.
Right. But they didn't.
I worked for the Prophets Conference. So, yeah, I was coordinator with them at that time. So, mm-hmm. And you know, it was interesting because most of the workshops that were being done were lectures.
Right.
And they were not interactive. They were not anyone, you know, where anyone had any experience. There was just basically somebody who stood up in front of the room and led a lecture. And there's nothing wrong with those lectures. I mean, we had Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and a lot of other really brilliant people, Russell Chard,
Hank
Wesselman. But the difference was that yours was experiential and that people wanted to have more experience. And they weren't quite sure how to deal with that because, well, 400 people having experiences, you're just not so sure how to deal with them.
But that was really fun. And it doesn't matter whether you do that with 10 people or 450 people. It's equally joyful to make that medicine, to imbibe that medicine, to pass it through you out into the world, and to know that you're doing good, that you're, healing is happening. It's yeah, I love my work. I'm really grateful. And I hope some of you will join me. I'm only going to take a small number of people for this class because I don't want a lot of people. I'm trying some new things, and I'm wanting to have people that are serious, not, which is, it's not cheap for a teleclass, but considering the amount of people that said they were interested, and the fact that I really can only handle so many and be able to hold it on the telephone this last time before I turn in the manuscript. So,
I put a link to the class for the registration for the class, the Hathor's Mirror link in the quote in the chat section. So anybody who's interested in getting in the class, I suggest you go ahead and get registered, because as she said, she's not going to take very many people, and this will fill up, and it will fill up very quickly. If you're listening to this on YouTube, go to hathorsmirror.com and click on the class, and hopefully you'll be able to get in.
And it's okay to, if you have to miss a couple of nights, it will be taped, but don't get in it thinking you're going to just do it on the tape version, because I need your presence to be able to engage and discuss and really get down to making sure that the various transmissions, of course, and the transformations happen, and so that when it gets published, we're going to have some high magic going on out there. And it'll be in a book.
And as you've heard from Raven and I, we were in the first of those classes, and believe me, whenever we tell you, this was a class that changed our lives.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, that's what people say. It's interesting. Of all the classes that I do, I think people say that more about that class than any other class. Although for me, watching people discover that they can heal, doing alchemical healing, I will never tire of that, because it's just so much fun to see people, especially now that I'm starting to get the next couple of generations, and watching them awaken to the fact of how simple it is.
mm-hmm.
And how anybody can do it.
Well, Kitty says the last live class changed my life. Amazing. So we are your fan club. I mean, there's no doubt about it. We've taken just about every class you've ever offered. So, I mean, I didn't take a few of your early classes, but most of them, starting back in Seattle, we've taken. And we've taken the 1-year program, which we think you should repeat, and again and again and again. And nothing like nagging, is there, Nicki?
I have to be really honest about that. I see people doing mystery schools where they get people to commit to a year or two, but my life is so chaotic, I can't imagine it. So I'm just, I don't know whether it's a trust issue or just not believing that people will commit. But I guess, so, hey, if that's something you want, write and tell me and I'll do it. I'm not going to be traveling anymore. So, or at least as little as I can get away with.
Well, I did think of that. One of the reasons why I was thinking about it is because just about 14 years ago, we were doing one of the last sessions of our one-year class. Mm-hmm. And it was a class in conscious dying. And whenever we did that, when we planned that in July, we had no knowledge at that time that 9/11 was going to be a real experience.
Yep.
And that whenever we were coming together again at the time of the equinox in September, that
what we'd be dealing with.
What we would be dealing with.
Right.
And as we sit here 14 years later, and you and I are both dealing with this issue because Nicki's mother just passed on and my husband just passed on, and within
a
week of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They're probably up there dancing. But they so we're both going through the living part of conscious dying, of understanding what it means to hold that space for someone to pass on. And whether or not it is a mass event such as 9/11, or it's a very personal event like the events that we've experienced in the last month or so, in the last couple of weeks here, in fact, knowing that was one of those places where the training transcended what was taught. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah, I mean, we were given the gifts that we needed, not knowing that we were going to need them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that it was a experience that, looking back on it, was I hate to use the word transformative again, but it was almost transmutative. It was something that happened at a level that was remarkable, and remarkable not in the teeny bopper kind of way, but remarkable in that, looking back at it, how important it was. And this is the part of your teachings that I think people may not see if all they're seeing is your books, is that this is something that goes over a period of years. Mm-hmm. And you may not know what it is that you're experiencing when you're experiencing it, when you're in the class. It may look like a really cool weekend in Eugene. And it may not be.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things that occurred was one of the first planetary healing classes, and we were birthing babies or doing something with in a cauldron or something, and I was bringing in this new found child. And I was told I was giving birth to Maya. Well, Maya is water in Egypt. It's illusion in Buddhism. It's an Indian tribe down in India. I mean, in Mexico. However, what I found out that afternoon was that my daughter-in-law was pregnant again, a second time. And I said, well, what's her name going to be? And she said, Kelsey. Okay, no brooking. It was obviously, it was a name set in stone. So Miss Kelsey grew up. Miss Kelsey got pregnant. And Miss Kelsey gave birth to a beautiful little girl named Maya. And Maya's now 6 years old and absolutely gorgeous. Great-grandmother bragging here.
Right, babe.
But the point was that, you know, what I was doing that day may have looked like playing around in the Akashic record, but I have no idea where that's going to go. What I do know is when I asked Kelsey where she got the name of Maya, she informed me that she had always known that she was going to have a daughter named Maya. She said all her dolls, whenever she had been given a doll when she was about 2.5, 3 years old, that was the name that she came into her head, and she knew that Maya was going to be her daughter. So this is the kind of magic that you bring. So it's a magic that is not apparent within itself. It's not something where you're going to see, you know, whoosh, flash magicians.
Well, it's both.
Hmm?
It's both.
Yeah.
You get your instant gratification at certain levels, but at other levels, there's a maturation period where you're still integrating new things a long ways down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't think it's an either or experience, but I don't know. What other questions do people have?
Well,
Are there any other questions?
are any other questions? If you'd like to ask questions, please. I think they've been listening, because after Kitty put in the last comment, there hasn't been much. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you know, Nicki, when we first learned alchemical healing from you long, long, long ago, you always said it's like drinking from a straw. You know, some of it sticks to the straw as you soak it up. So as we're bringing that energy through, some of it always is with us, and we don't know how that alchemy is changing us. So as we learned how to do the work, and as we went out and did the work, some of it stuck to us too and changed us in ways that we weren't knowing as we did what it is we did. And so yeah, and some of it was brilliant and wonderful, and some of it was like, what the heck is going on with me lately? And then you realize what's going on. You're transforming, you're alchemizing. And
then some of it you don't realize until, like, remember when we did the class Becoming an Oracle the first time?
Mm-hmm.
And Starwolf, how she transformed from it. Normandy.
yes.
When I told Normandy what we were doing, she was terrified. She says, I'm not doing that. I said, what do you mean you're not doing that? She said, I'm not becoming an oracle. I can't do it. And I said, okay, I've never run into this before. Not sure what to do. About a half an hour later, she calls me back and she said, okay, I'm in. I said, what happened? She said, I found my last journal from 5 years ago, and it ended with my being told to do that and my refusal. And I can't do that again. And then I saw her go from absolute antagonism to the idea of being an oracle to taking it so seriously that she studied mediumship and got a PhD in it. and became a minister, a spiritualist minister, based on her experience in that class. It was really, I mean, a huge transformation.
And then out of that class and Star Wolf's birthing came your Anubis Oracle.
And the Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of things came out of that.
You never know.
You never know.
Never know.
But people should know that the one that Gloria did, that she produced with me, although they wouldn't let me put her name on it, was Becoming an Oracle. And it's on CD. So for those of you that complain that you can't get it by reading it, well, get the 7 CD set, Becoming an Oracle, because then you get to get it fed to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. Showed up. We're going to teach a class called Becoming an Oracle. What have you done, Nicki? Nothing. Mark has 2 journeys. One's at the beginning and one's at the end. Well, what are we going to put in the middle?
I kept waiting, thinking I was going to get better. I was in a lot of pain. And I kept thinking, next week I'll get better. Next week I'll get better. And it looked like I was going to have to renege on the contract. And bless your heart, you came up and brought it through. It took me to Colorado, to the studio.
Yeah. So Adrienne wants to know, should we read one of your books before the class? If so, which one?
You don't need to.
Okay. Maria wants to say that she learned so much in the Alchemical Healing class that she uses it every chance she gets to let anyone will let her. It's been a fascinating journey. Thank you so much. And Normandy Ellis says, oh, we think that's funny. I don't know what we think's funny. It is. Whatever it is, it's funny.
She's probably talking about my take on her experience with becoming an oracle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but that's the only thing I can think of. I'm so glad you're on the phone. I've been, ever since I talked to you until we did this, I've been editing our book. You know, so
she's telling you she's been working.
Huh?
I said, you're telling her you've been working, huh?
I've been working. She'd be happy.
Okay.
She'd be proud of me.
And Felicia says, how to show up. Isn't it encouraging the way we step up and into and springboard into the other unknown material, becoming an oracle or whatever happens for us. We are malleable. Thank goodness.
Yes, indeed. Thank goodness.
So you have the new class, which is starting October 1st, I believe it was.
Yes. Our book is due the 28th, so I couldn't do anything until after that. And I had to give myself a few days to pull it together and refocus.
Okay. So starting October 1st, but do get registered now if you want to be in that class.
Yeah. 6 sessions, 1.5 to 2 hours long.
Okay. And Normandy says, it was the idea of her not becoming an oracle.
Like she had a choice.
Yeah, no, Normandy, there was no choice. It was foreordained long before you were born.
Screaming.
By the way, if you haven't seen the show with Normandy, which was last week, it is available on YouTube, and she is, as always, and beyond belief, brilliant. We highly, highly recommend anything that Normandy writes, even her blog, which we just read today. So we love it.
Well, I'm gonna have to read it. I didn't know you had one.
Yeah.
It's brand new.
It's brand new.
But I'm just so excited that you're on and listening. And it's just been, I just need to tell everybody what an honor and privilege it has been to write a book with Normandy and for us to be able to complete our sentences, each other's sentences, and be so comfortable with one another. It's just been an amazing collaboration, and I'm just so excited about it.
It is an amazing collaboration we have all been in. And as I said, you know, I started back in, I don't know, 1985 or 1986. I can't remember which year it was, simply because Nicki was coming to Seattle, and there was an article in the New Times saying that she was doing something about Egypt. And I was totally interested in Egypt and totally not interested in healing. So I was willing to go to the class. So, you know, and here I am all these years later. And Raven, I don't know what drew you in, but I don't know, somebody probably promised you a weekend in Port Townsend.
No, it's a long, long story. We won't go into it here.
Yeah.
It's a good story, but I'm so glad, because I didn't know I was going to do that. I didn't know I was going to do all those things. I didn't know. I was sure I was not going to go to Egypt, and I went twice. So,
yeah. And, you know, Normandy was this brilliant scholar somewhere isolated, and Nicki calls her up on the phone to tell her how much she likes her. And that's how the relationship began. And so, you know, we have all pulled together over these years, and we have worked together and
stayed together
and created together. And it's what we want for you. It's why I have a gathering of priestesses. If we can bring this energy together, we can create something that is so much greater than us individually, and it will last so much longer. So whether it's creating Maya, and we have no idea where she's going to go, or whether it is creating magic, we ask for, you know, you to be part of this, and you, the listeners, you, the other speakers. The point of this is to create a worldwide web, and I use that term advisedly, of priestesses, that we can support one another, that we can say, hey, I'm doing this event, or I'm writing this book, and I'd like you to be a part of it. And I'd like you to be, I mean, Raven's just gone to the Sekhmet temple with Ann Key, which has Goddess Inc. We're involved with Kimberly Moore down in Boca Raton, who has the Mother House of the Goddess. Carol Ione was very devastated that she couldn't be on the show the other day with Normandy. She has an incredible event coming up. You know, all of these things are ways we support each other, ways we love each other, and ways that we know each other. So if you are interested in being part of this group and being a guest on this group, on this show, please let me know, because I am booking for November, December, January now, and I would love to have you on. If you're a teacher, if you're not a teacher, if you just have something to say, you do have to be willing to be on video. So this in a way is my gift to the world, is I want to create a web that we can all walk upon. And Raven has been kind enough to be my co-host on these shows. And she just happens to be here. She's usually in Albuquerque. Mm-hmm. She is the most brilliant, incredible tarot reader, water priestess, tree priestess, ceremonialist. Yeah, don't ask me for ceremony.
So can I just throw in here that, you know, my website is Shamanic Journeys or nickiscully.com, but I've got a store that's called hathorsmirror.com. And I've got Raven's books, and I've got book, and all of Normandy's books, and Gloria's book with Normandy, and we are taking pre-orders for the Union of Isis and Thoth, because we will have them in hand by the 1st of December. And
remember when Hathor's Mirror came in, the name?
no.
You and I were laying back on a great big king-size bed at the hotel in Egypt.
Yeah.
And you wanted to have a place to sell things, and you needed a name. And I said, Hathor's Mirror. And you immediately went on to get the domain name and said, oh, it's available. It happened in Egypt. I love it. Very fun. We laughed and laughed. It was great fun.
It took a long time to actually create the store, but I was really glad I saved the domain name.
It's so perfect. So perfect for you.
So
you never know what things are going to happen.
So whether you are listening to us, whether you are on the show with us, you are part of a gathering of priestesses. And Nicki, I want to thank you so much for being a part of a gathering of priestesses, and in effect, being the seminal priestess who started the whole thing.
That's right. You are.
Thank you.
And we love you. And I honor and respect you and love you. And I'm so grateful that you've been my teacher and my friend.
Oh, you guys.
You rock, baby.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we will have this show up on YouTube shortly. But if you're interested in being in the Sekhmet class, I suggest you get in there now. Normandy is, well, I will give her a plug as well, is doing some absolutely incredible things back in Grand Rapids and Chicago and what have you. And you can find out more about that at normandyellis.com. I think if you've also got some of it on shamanicjourneys.com.
I think Deb Clarkin might have stuff too. Anyway, they'll all be at shamanicjourneys.com schedule page. Everybody, if they've been good about getting their schedule to us, it should be up to date.
Okay.
I haven't checked because I've been busy.
Well, will you share Gloria's email address? I think you all have my email address. It's, or do you mean Nicki's email address? Nicki's email address is nikki@shamanicjourneys.com. Raven's is kravenwood@yahoo.com. And mine is Gloria Taylor Brown, SD, as in San Diego, at gmail.com. And my website is Gloria Taylor Brown. Ravens is Catherine Ravenwood. That's spelled Kathryn. And we look forward to having you. We will be on next week, and it would have been nice if I'd actually looked at my calendar before the end of the show. But we're going to have somebody really fascinating and interesting. I'll guarantee you that. I know we have Yeshe Matthews coming up the end of the month, and we've got a number of speakers that are teachers that are going to be on that are quite wonderful. We thank you for being with us. Nicki, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
My joy. Thank you.
And Raven, thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence. I appreciate your being here this week. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
It's my joy.
And thank you all, because frankly, I really love doing live shows. Mm-hmm. And you being present allows me to do this show live. And the liveness of it makes it that much more on the edge, because as my teacher Normandy Ellis has said, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much room. Good evening. We love you all. Bye-bye.